Right, hello everyone, and welcome to what is going to be the fourth episode of the As You Should podcast. My name is Michael Farrer, and today I'm joined by my good friend Amin Yousefi, a fellow University of Westminster alumni. We studied together for a year on the MA Documentary Photography and Photojournalism course, and he's got some things to say. So, Amin, I'm just going to give you a brief introduction. So, he claims to be a photographer, and yet he takes no pictures. Instead, he chooses to use other people's. Is that accurate?
Yeah, somehow, yeah. But the point is that I always love to work with photography rather than taking pictures. And my encounter with photography started with looking at the picture. I think the first struggle that I had was when I was attending to the university and there was an exam and I was trying to pass the exam. They're asking me about a picture that I couldn't explain it. It was a historical picture. I can't remember what.
Mm,
Yeah, and that makes me like feel. That makes me to think about photography more than taking picture at the very first day. But it was something that I was curious to know more about history and
yeah,
with reading the history or seeing the pictures. I found more interesting thing. Even though I worked with photography, I mean, taking picture till like 2019 till
yeah,
and yeah, COVID was something that forced me to work with pictures because
yeah,
I couldn't go outside and do
yeah.
photography.
I mean,
But
obviously I'm taking the mick a little bit, but what you do with photography is a legitimate transformative art form. You're working with archives essentially, and it's quite a unique thing what you're doing because
yeah,
it's all sort of encompassing um sort of the history and culture from your own country.
mhm.
And it's I mean we probably have to be somewhat careful what we say because we don't know who's watching. Um,
Mhm.
but in some ways it's quite anti-establishment.
Mhm.
Would you say that was true?
Uh, it's complicated. The first point is that I'm working with the history of Iran or somehow Middle East. I prefer to say Middle East because at this point I'm working with the pictures from Iran and but I think that potential that Iran archives has, the Middle East archives has because it's a still untouchable area that less people working on it and it's something that makes me curious to work on the next stage. But in that terms, we can talk about anything you want. I'm totally fine that you can talk about
Yeah.
anything. Yeah.
I mean, we can dive into the graduate project, the second one that you did at Westminster, because
Yeah.
out of the two, I think that was definitely my favorite one out of the two.
Hmm.
Um, and I think there's a much more interesting story behind that one as well, because if I remember rightly, your friend found all those pictures in like a charity shop or something.
No, so basically we have many dealers in Iran. They selling and buying like forbidden books or some like rare books in the black market. I mean, by black market, they have like an Instagram page and they selling this old stuff. And one
Yeah,
of my friends, she's collecting all these books and photo books and sometimes pictures, like family albums, anything. She's just collecting these. And when I was like about to working on my final project, I was talking to her and I was like, sharing idea because she's doing also in the photography area. I don't want to mention who is she
yeah, that's
because
fine.
doesn't want, yeah. And yeah, and she offered me these archives and she showed me I saw it once before and completely forgot about it. But she told me about the archives again. I take a look at the pictures and I found them interesting. And but the pictures doesn't have any information. It was 138th, if I'm right. of dead people in a morgue in a hospital, and the pictures was a completely the photos of their face smashed or like a bullet in their head, completely violent
Mm.
images. And I was like, yeah, that's a new challenge. I take the risk because there wasn't nothing on the project. I mean, there was no information about the images. And that was the starting point. I started with struggling how to find the history of some images that I don't know which year they taken
Yeah.
or for what year was that. And yeah, so the starting point was that, and I start with two sides. One, finding the history. The second one was showing these pictures, because the first time that I showed some of them in the class, no one was looking at it. I mean, even the tutors was like, the pictures there was like completely violence in the pictures, and so I
Yeah.
struggled with these two sides.
I remember looking at that because I remember that exact tutorial where you brought them with, and my I remember my first two thoughts was, A, what were you going to do with them? And secondly, how was your own government going to react to you having them and using them as a project? So
Mhm.
it was totally dependent on what your presentation was going to be, because if it's a transformative artwork, and at the time we were definitely thinking in terms of the graduate show and how they were going to be presented. It was a huge amount of the context was based on that.
Yeah.
So was it going to be a project that you would look at in a book or on screen or in prints, that sort of thing, or was it entirely presentation based project?
Yeah.
And it turned out to be multiple things, didn't it?
Yeah, so I had many options to show them and to present them in an exhibition. There was like a very conceptual approach to show them in a installation way rather than photo installation.
Mm,
And one approach was that to make a showcase of the whole process, all the struggle that I have, and at the end show some of the pictures in inverse that I will explain why I made them in inverse. And I quite like that one. And at the end, I decided to show them in a slideshow, all the images inverted and black and white. The original picture was color, and make them in a black room, in a black box. And people, when they want to see the original image, they have to use their phone to invert it. You can do this with
yeah,
iPhone. So the black box become a white box, like a white cube, like a white gallery, and you see the original image. Those like black demons lights around the box become
yeah,
like a very, blinding lights, and you see the original image of these photographs. But the interesting point was that at first I thought that this is the pictures of the people of Mujahideen. There was a terrorist group in Iran during the revolution and war. And at first I thought that these pictures are from those people who died during the revolution. And they take the pictures for identify their
mm,
identity. And because I found a date on one of the body, but it seems that there wasn't a date. It was a number. They numbering them,
right,
and yeah, and the interesting point was that I found another pictures of a revolutionary in Iran during the days of revolution, wearing a jacket with hundreds of these images attached to the jacket with a pin. Yeah, he's a man in 60 or 70. David Burnett took this picture, and there is two pictures in his photo book, 44 days, and one is from his back, one is from his front, and he's on top of the people and wearing this jacket. So I understand this is definitely not the pictures of the Mujahideen, the terrorist group. It's from
right,
the revolutionary who died. Yeah. And it was something that I found them in the very last days of the degree show.
yeah,
So Yeah, and I was struggling. What should I do? Should I stop the project before this information, or should I add them to the degree show? And I decided to write it down. So I add this at the last stage
Mm,
and make the whole critical review and the dissertation as a like a diary. And I said, so at this stage, a couple of weeks before the degree show, I found these images. It changed slightly the project, the context of the project, and now when I want to show the whole project, I prefer to have a showcase of the whole
yeah,
process from the beginning, that I found the pictures, how we find these pictures in Iran, to the presentation, which is,
yeah.
I think, slideshow is the best option.
And it's been a year now since we
Yeah.
finished, well, quote unquote, finished those projects. How has it developed since then? Has it anything else changed?
So yeah, at that point, I add the pictures of the man. I mean, the actual picture without any changes. The both picture add to it. Text, more text add to this. So it's somehow, if I want to give example, I'm not that much like expert, but when you look at the fish story about Hisekula, you face an article, you face photographs, you face many, you see many graph. So I think I can move this project in this way. So
Mm.
it's a series of texts, pictures, the process, interview somehow. So at the end, I'm thinking about something like this, but I'm not sure if I want to do it in a photo book or an exhibition, but the context is going to be changed in this approach.
Yeah, I was about to ask about a photo book. I think that would be a because your last project, remind me of the name.
Eyes dazzle, yeah.
Yeah,
At
so
this,
that
yeah.
culminated in a photo book, but that was a much more image centric thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, that one was look good on the photo book.
yeah,
However, I didn't like the photo book that I made, to be honest, for university, but yeah, I still think photo book is the best for that one.
yeah. I mean, I think with that one, it was uh, if I remember rightly, it was more like a magazine type format
Yeah, the
rather
format
than a
became
sort of a
better.
traditional coffee table type
Yeah.
photo book. Yeah,
So
but
now I'm
I felt
thinking
like it
about
worked
making
at the
something like
time.
yeah, now I'm thinking to make something like in the size of notebook, A5 or a
Oh
bit
yeah,
between
so
A5 and A4, yeah.
there's A5. So that's
Exactly.
yeah, it's about the right size.
Yeah. More intimate. I think the people needs to be like, be more calm with the book, and
Yeah, I think it would be quite sort of reflective of the actual gallery installation you had, because with that thing you were sort of inviting the audience to actually interact with it, get in close. And
yeah,
also, like you said earlier, it was black and white and inverted. To actually see the photos, you had to pull open your phone, invert it, and have a look through it to actually see what was going on.
yeah,
And I think smaller pieces definitely invite a lot more of, get in and look at the thing rather than stand back and miss out all the details.
yeah,
You got to sort of almost force someone to actually hold it and take notice of it.
yeah, yeah, true. Well, I don't know. Many things changed after the university, but at this stage, I'm still thinking that I'm a photo book artist, I'm exhibition artist, I'm
Yeah. When are you
what
going
I
to
am.
take some
And
pictures?
yeah, I changed my camera a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, it's a good like starting point to take some pictures.
You've been in the UK about 2 years now. You should have some confidence to go and take some pictures.
Yeah, I tried the first days. I was like, okay, I'm going out with the camera and test the camera and take some pictures, but still, I don't know. I'm to be honest, when I start reading Azule, I face some issue about the violence of photography itself.
Yeah.
And this is something that I'm thinking about it these days, that as a historian or like researcher or writer, when you write or do a research on something, you have eligibility to work on it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You have
Yeah, for sure.
knowledge, you do the research.
Yeah.
But as a photographer in general, I'm not talking about the MA student or
Yeah.
PhD or BA even student. As a photographer in general, we take a picture of everything that we want and we appropriate it in a way that we want, and we change the history. Maybe it not seems that serious when we take a picture of outside right now, but make a compare with the pictures of 200 years ago, you know what I mean, 100 years ago. When we see a picture, when we read the caption, the institutions, and they power on the, you know, to change the context of the image. I think photography, it's on that stage for me. I'm like, if I'm going back to my hometown, do a project that I did in 2017, 18, I completely work on these people and this zone in my perspective. And maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a politician, or I'm not a historian who knows this zone, even I was born there. So yeah, this is something that stopped me from taking pictures. I think
Mm.
the violence that I'm using through photography, um, it's something that I can't control it, and it can be abused or used to next 200 years.
Mm.
Next
Are
200
you
years.
are you apprehensive about the future of photography? And the reason why I ask is because so I'm reading a lot of Walter Benjamin at the moment, and
Mhm.
I'm currently reading his essay, The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction,
Yeah.
and it got me thinking a lot about AI. And I just recorded an episode with my co-host Miles on AI.
Mhm.
And I have conversations with people about it all the time because it fits into so many categories of not just art but work, like workflow in general. And the status quo of image production is about to change entirely. It's already changed my workflow. I have integrated it into my client work. So
Mhm.
are you apprehensive about how photography is about to sort of it's gonna reshape the entire dynamic of society and how people view images, because we're going to reach a point where people don't understand what is a real image and what is a fake image, and that's incredibly dangerous because you can influence society
Of course.
so easily with an image. And people talk about cancel culture and political correctness and all of that, and you can see how easily people snap and will just sort of take like this mob mentality. And you talk about violence in photography,
Mhm.
but people react violently to photography.
Mhm. Mhm.
So how do you feel about
Um,
that?
when AI started, we were like in the middle of university, and it was quite new. And one thing came to my mind. It was exactly the things that photography did to painting. When photography came, the realism in painting disappear, and painters start in different aesthetic of the work. So
Mhm.
the aesthetic of the painting changed, and photography was in charge of showing the reality outside. So we can't see realism in painting after photography, because painters understand that, so there is one apparatus that can show reality outside, why we should do that. So they change themselves, and they change based on the invention of photography. I think AI, maybe, I'm not making a statement or manifest, this is completely my personal thought, that do something like this to photography if it's developed more and more with this speed, you know what I mean, with this space.
Yeah.
And it can be change photography, and AI going to be in charge of something out there or inside, and photography slightly changes aesthetic and its way to show something else. And yeah, I saw many news that they use AI photos, and they, after weeks, they understand, oh, this picture was based on AI. I can't remember what newspaper was that,
There
but
was something in the Met Gala was a few months ago, and I think it was the Sun newspaper
yeah, Sun, yeah, yeah, I
picked up these photographs of some celebrities heading into like an after party,
Yeah.
And it was like 2 days later, they revealed they were totally fake. And then not long after, they picked up this photograph of Pope Francis in this massive Balenciaga coat.
Yeah, yeah, I
And that
saw that.
turned out to be AI generated as well. But I might be wrong, but I believe they published it as a real photograph.
And all these things happen in less than a year. I mean, look at
Yeah.
this they had. So I'm not talking about this year or next year. I'm talking about next 5 years.
Mm,
How much is going to develop, and what is the difference between the real photograph that we make with the camera and the AI-based images. So yeah, I think maybe something like that. This is the only thing that I can think about AI and photography, that painting change and photography maybe change and find its way
mm.
to present itself,
Are you
maybe.
going to play around with it?
No, to be I tried once or twice. I was like uploading some of my picture and asked it to regenerate
Mm,
new images from the
yeah.
pictures they have, and it was quite nice. I mean, I had more pictures for my project, but no, because I don't know, there is a lack of research on it. I don't understand it yet. I mean, in the way that I when I want to work with photography or archives, I have some resources that I can refer to it and read it and, find the solution that I work on a project.
Mm.
But with AI is unclear for me yet. And no, it was just playing with it. No, not that serious. What about you? I think you're into it.
Yeah, I've done quite a lot with it. I was very curious from the get-go, um, because you could just create such bizarre situations. And I was very interested in the way that it was able to pick up on popular aesthetics and translate them a uh, into an AI generated photograph. Some of these things that I was generating, you would look at them as if they were a high quality studio produced photo, and it was able to sort of recognize that that was what people would recognize, and generate an image based on that. These things were at perfect shade, like perfect lighting and shadow, the Rembrandt triangle, all of that lovely detail, and also gesturally as well. It's not at the time, it wasn't quite there with replicating human gestures
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So I had one where I had someone biting into like a tomato, and it was very, very aggressive. It was
Mm.
very sort of forced. And I come back to it occasionally. I did one. Um, the most recent one I did was on the coronation day. I thought, yeah, I've
Mhm.
got to do something. So I made a little something in Dali. It takes 10 seconds, and suddenly I had this artwork that I was like, yep, let's upload it to Instagram.
Yeah,
Give it a title. It becomes mine. It takes on context.
yeah. I mean, it's same with ChatGPT. I mean, uh,
It's a great tool.
I was talking to one of my friends about the ChatGPT, and he was like, "Man, we graduated without
At the
ChatGPT."
wrong time. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
and I was like, how it makes everything easy now. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
I was reading, I was listening to a podcast by a guy from, tech area, and he was working with AI in general. And he was like working with ChatGPT and all these AI assistant is like the fight that photographers back days has with photography and Photoshop. At those days when photographer used a Photoshop in any aspect, like correcting the light, everything, it was something bad. And the pure
Mm,
picture was the pictures made by the analog camera or digital camera somehow without any, changing.
yeah.
And then after a while, after years, we understand that we can do photography without using a Photoshop. You know what I mean? Even in analog photographers, they scan the images, they put it in Photoshop, they correct the light, they correct the color. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about photo montage.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the in even documentary photographers. So I think something like everything in AI, especially in visual arts or chat GPT even, it somehow is like a Photoshop as a tool that
Mm.
can help you to, to get that target or to your
Yeah.
from your approach. This is something that I think in general
Yeah.
about AI that can be assist you in your
Yeah.
area.
I mean, in documentary photography, we talk a lot about ethics and how far you can transform a photograph before it
Mhm.
becomes inauthentic. The most sort of famous cases being maybe like Migrant Mother, where there was stuff removed from that picture. I remember there was an image. I can't remember who took it, but there was an image taken in the aftermath of 9/11 at a press conference that was quite heavily cropped and had quite a lot of information redacted from it. And there was a huge sort of outcry about that. So, we consider editing images a lot in documentary photography. And, and we talk about photoshopping images and how far we can take it. So
Yeah,
this is going to open up a whole new kettle of fish in terms of talking about ethics in photography in documentary sense. What is real, what is fake, how can you transform an image to totally change the context of it?
that's why I'm saying AI and these AI generated images is unclear for me because for example, when talking about documentary photography, we know there is a boundary. It's not an actual boundary about that how much you can edit your pictures, but we all knows that there is like these boundaries exist, and we should work with this area to have
Yeah.
a documentary, photograph. But in AI is still for me is unclear, but I'm sure is next 2 years they're gonna be like some specific attitude for using it to it's funny because I'm finding some artists on Instagram that they write down in their bio that AI artists.
Oh, there's a good one.
Yeah, and
There's a good one.
I'm not label them or make a comment about them, but it's something that we have to talk. I mean, what
Mm,
is AI artist doing? You know what I mean? It's completely toolsless. You know what I mean?
mm.
AI is
It's
completely
kind
tool.
of it's I'll 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 say it straight up. It's inauthentic.
Yeah. This is
It's
I'm opening a topic that
yeah,
is a whole
yeah.
episode, but it's something that I'm telling you why I'm trying to not get close to AI because it's unclear for me.
Well,
I don't.
I feel like as people who have studied art and photography for a very long time, we have a right to take offense to these
Of
things
course, yeah,
because
yeah.
we put so much work into getting to where we are today, and there is now this tool and this attitude that people can take on about, oh, I feel like I can be an artist because I just typed uh some completely bizarre situation into an AI model and it made the work for me. Are you
Look,
it's pretty offensive.
of course, what the history repeats itself. It's still again reminds me of the fight between the analog photographer
Yeah,
and digital
yeah,
photographer.
and painters and photographers and
Yeah, and
yeah,
yeah, exactly. The analog photographers was like, oh, those with digital camera are not artists. The artist is the one who
yeah,
developed its film and prints their
yeah.
pictures in
But
darkroom
at
and
least in those contexts, you have to have an understanding of what good aesthetics are.
yeah.
With AI, it's already built into the
Yeah,
code.
it's toolsless. You just write a prompt and you get an image. And I think the only artistic way that you work on it in AI is that
Yeah,
you say like, I don't know what is the trends prompt now, but like make a pictures like Sugimoto or make a pictures like Jeff Wall for me.
Yeah, like Bruce
I mean,
Gilden, like yeah, and it will do it.
you give the style for it. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't want to be like next 10 years, someone coming back to this podcast and say, look at these,
Look at these guys, yeah.
different person is
Look
saying
at
this.
these
You know,
idiots talking
I
about
don't want
AI,
to make
yeah.
a case study, but yeah, I think it's completely somehow same the fight that we have, and
Yeah,
we should wait for it. I'm happy that I'm seeing people work on it. You saying that you work on it is develop the idea and the knowledge of the AI.
yeah. Just talking about ethics and aesthetics, how do you negotiate those two things when you're working with other people's photographs?
In what terms? Oh,
In when you're taking something that already exists and you're transforming it, you're re-aestheticizing in a way. How do you negotiate that? Because let's think about those pictures that were made in the hospitals of the dead revolutionaries. They were not pictures made. They were pure documents. They are not aesthetic pictures
yeah.
as they started out, and you're essentially making them into an artwork. How do you sort of negotiate the ethical side of doing that?
Yeah, so the first thing is that for the previous project, the Eyes Dazzle, um, I'm starting with that one and tell you about the second one as well. In that one, I have the pictures of the photojournalists, the professional photojournalists, international ones who came to Iran, and domestic photographers who doing documenting the revolution. The point is that my pictures is completely comes out from the context of their images. So I'm not talking specific about the revolution in Iran. The pictures, it comes from the revolution as a mass event that happened that
Yeah,
helps me to get that approach that I
yeah,
want.
yeah,
And I crop them. I'm working with the people's gaze in those pictures. I don't have uh, anything with the images of the revolution or the journalistic images. So it's completely comes out from that context, and I just use it as a material. You know what I mean? So I'm
yeah,
looking at those pictures as a word. Seriously, I'm taking them from a text, the words that is exist in the world, and change the meaning and put it in a different sentence. It seems simplistic, but for me, for that project was completely like that. And the second one, there is no photographer for those pictures. It's completely document for state to identify these people. And I have the print. So I don't understand that these ethical relation, you know what I mean? Sometimes you copy a pictures and show it in a gallery and you sell it and you did nothing and you even didn't change the context. Completely a copy paste of the images. That's different.
yeah,
In this context, again, I'm trying to work on a project to identify these people, to showing that how photography is violent, that someone 50, 60, 40 years ago take a picture of a person in a morgue, in a hospital, a dead person. We don't know who is he. And whatever I say, gonna be the context of the image. So if I tell you these pictures is from the terrorist group, the Mujahideen groups from Iran, you're going to accept it because I work on this project. If I tell you these are our revolutionary, you're going to accept it. If I say this is the pictures of the soldiers in World War II, maybe you again accept it. You know what I mean? It depends
yeah.
on the,
I'll take
but
anything you say as
yeah,
gospel about those pictures.
yeah. So the
You are
whole
you are the leading authority on that particular.
Yeah, so the
Yeah,
point of the project again is not that I'm using those pictures.
mm,
I'm trying to show you somehow these contexts, how they can slightly change by my approach. And you're gonna take it and you're gonna understand it and accept it because I work on it.
yeah.
I'm just telling that as an artist, in general, when an artist work with archives or images. But
So
yeah, this is the
yeah,
thing.
I'll ask you one more question just to wrap up because we're running out of time. So, what comes next? Are you working on anything at the moment?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's quite far from photography. What I'm working right now is more about um language.
Okay.
Yeah, but is working with video and like interview. I don't want to say anything about it because I haven't started. I'm doing the research on it and probably started like I don't know next month, and I don't have any deadline for it. And it's work with more language and it's video and it's written interviews. So I ask people to write something for me. And the whole point is about the language of non-native people. I
Right.
mean,
Wow.
native English people.
Okay.
And yeah, this is something that I'm working on it. There is another one. I don't know what's going on it
Yeah.
but I have the material. It's not archives, but I
Yeah.
didn't take a picture. One of my friends take a picture of an object that I have it in Iran, and he sent me the pictures, and I'm gonna work with that.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the first time that after a while I wanted to take a picture, I don't have the objects
Yeah.
in. So yeah,
All
it's
right.
it's it's a bit far from photography, but
Yeah.
it's
Well, I'm sure we'll talk about it over a few pints of Guinness at some point. But
sure.
yeah, I'll wrap up. So thank you very much for coming on. It's been a fantastic conversation. I think our listeners will enjoy it very much, and I'm sure we will hear from you again at some point. So thank you everyone for listening to episode 4. I've been Michael Farah. Thank you again to my good friend Amin,
Thank you for
and
having me.
uh, happy listening.